Welcome to Disaster Zone, a show about emergencies and disasters that can happen anywhere and at any time. Today's show is about electrical and gas safety. It's something that everyone should know about, including children, in order to prevent injuries and in some cases even death. My guest today is Charlie Gadzik, Customer Safety Communications Manager for Puget Sound Energy. And welcome, Charlie, thanks for coming, being on the show and sharing information about safety. It's, I think, critically important. I grew up, my dad was a railroad engineer, and he was always hammering safety first, so it's great to be having this topic today.
Good to be here.
All right, and we're going to talk more in the first half of the show about electrical safety and then transition to gas safety in the second part. But certainly we've seen in the past we have a lot of hazards that can impact our electrical grid, and whether it's winter storms, ice storms, even earthquakes can make that happen. And we want to make sure people are making the right decisions, taking the right precautions to stay safety. What are some of the key things people should do or don't do when it comes to generator safety?
Well, I'll give you two right off. One is where you place your generator. You don't want to put it anywhere in an enclosed space, inside the house for sure, in a garage even with the doors open, or outside a window that's open where there could be intake into the house through a window or through a vent that might feed your furnace, because that brings in carbon dioxide and that is a menace.
All right.
And the other thing I would mention is don't ever plug it directly into an outlet in your house. That actually creates a big hazard for our linemen. If there's a power outage and you do that, that current not only flows inside your house, it goes outside your house. So our guy out there on the power pole could get electrocuted not knowing that there is juice coming from the other direction.
Those are great tips, and for you folks at home, we've got a very short 4-minute video that talks about these two things, gives you pictures to back those up, and how to be safe around gas-powered generators for people that might use them in your home or even in your neighborhood. So watch this and then we'll be right back. Winter's here. Do you know how to hook up your gas-powered portable generator? You know, I've been an emergency manager for decades here in Western Washington, and we have frequent winter storms that may include snow and ice, but also high winds. Those high winds and ice bring down tree limbs, and that takes down our power grid system. And I also know from experience that when that happens, thousands of people pull out their portable gas-powered generator, start it up, and improperly do this, so that, again, I know that there'll be people who die from carbon monoxide poisoning, and in fact, I recall one gentleman actually setting himself on fire refueling a generator improperly. So we're here to talk about how to keep you safe. The first thing you need to do is read the directions. I know, guys, that can be hard for you to do, but this is what's going to keep you safe. Wives and partners out there, make sure they use the directions. There's other safety equipment you also need. A fire extinguisher. It isn't just the generator, but you need the appropriate cables to hook up the generator to your home. There are some ways to jury rig it that are not safe, and we'll cover those also. Well, to put your generator into operation, one thing you're absolutely going to need is gasoline. This is a 5-gallon can. There's other sizes that you can use. And I've got a siphon kit that we can pull gasoline out of a car should we run out, because, you know, gas stations, most of them don't have a generator either. So you aren't going to be able to just run down to the gas station and get more gas. And anytime you're refueling or when the generator's in operation, you need a good fire extinguisher to go with that. When it comes time to provide power to your house, you don't want to use this type of extension cord. You want to use the right size made specifically for a gas-powered generator, and don't forget you need a grounding cable to go with it to keep everybody safe. You know, after a fire extinguisher and proper refueling, the next best thing you can have to get power into your house is what's called a Gen-Trans switch. Costs perhaps around $600. You need a certified electrician to install it. and that provides power from the generator into your electrical panel. One of the measures that people forget to do is to ground their generator. So this is a grounding cable, and your generator will have a place where you can clip that on, and then that needs to be clipped to the grounding rod. Mine is around the corner and by the electric panel, and that grounds your system. So then you're going to need to take the power from the generator and put it into your house, and there's this plug made specifically for it. It goes in, and you give it a twist to seal it. And then you're going to need to take the power from the generator to the house through the GenTrans switch as a twist lock secures it. Once the generator is running and is transferring power, you move these switches to the generator position. Your gas-powered generator needs to be outside. Let's talk about where it should not be. It should not be inside the house itself. It should not be in the garage, even with the garage door open. It shouldn't be on a carport next to the home. All that traps the carbon monoxide fumes. And again, unfortunately, every time there's a big storm, people will die from carbon monoxide poisoning because they put the generator in the wrong location. Well, we're going to put the generator into operation and turn on the fuel. So you have fuel going. Need to actually turn this particular generator on. There's a choke, needs to be pulled out. And this doesn't have an electric start, so one of the things you don't want to do is refuel your generator while it's running. I like to have this be a two-person operation. I like using a funnel to help avoid spilling fuel. Have someone with the fire extinguisher. That keeps everybody safe. And remember, use the cable system we showed you. Never plug an extension cord into the generator and then into a regular outlet. I hope you've taken these generator safety tips to heart. So if you're going to get prepared, today's a good day to start. Let's do it safely. Hopefully you found that video very informative. And Charlie, after watching that, is there anything else you'd like to add about generator safety, especially gasoline generator safety?
Yeah, I would add that you shouldn't put that generator out in the rain or touch it while the ground is wet. The tip you gave about grounding it, that's certainly a really smart thing to do. But if it's going to be outside, put a canopy over it so that when you're out there, you're dry, it's dry, and you're not touching it with wet hands.
Okay, and that's something I didn't know about. But even if the generator is grounded, you should take that type of precaution.
Well, when it comes to electricity,
Yes.
I don't think you can be cautious enough.
How about, what are some of the things that power companies do before a storm to prepare to prevent damages or outages to homes and businesses? I mean, it's not all the response, but you're doing some mitigation work beforehand.
Yeah. Well, we have a year-long, 12-month-a-year tree trimming program where we try to keep the branches and the trees away from the line. That really helps a lot, but it doesn't solve the problem of trees because up here in the Northwest, we love our trees and we have big trees. And in order to keep trees from falling into the lines, you have to cut a corridor that's as wide as the biggest tree next to it. So if there's a 100-foot tree on the right side of the line, you've got to clear 100 feet away to make sure that tree doesn't interfere with the line. We wouldn't tolerate that. The trees are too beautiful. So we do our best to keep them clear of the lines. In areas where we can't get the clearance as far away as we'd like to, we use something called tree wire. That's electric conduit with an insulator on it, a very thin insulator, so that when a branch blows off a tree and lands on the lines and crosses two lines, it won't short out the lines. The juice will keep flowing. That tree wire looks just like telephone wire. So when that tree wire is on the ground, it could be an energized line. And that's one of the things that people need to know about is when they see lines on the ground, always assume it's energized. Don't think, oh, it's just a telephone line, I don't have to worry about it.
Okay, and I remember, I think it was like 2006, was a really big storm here, Hanukkah Eve, and there was an unfortunate incident where someone was out walking their dog after the power was lost, and they didn't touch a line, but they came near it. And actually, both the dog and the person, I think it was a gentleman, were electrocuted. So explain that.
Well, the lines can energize the ground around the line as well. So it's not just touching the line that the risk is. It's in the ground around it. And an even more tragic occurrence happened in Southern California, where a line came down in somebody's backyard. A family member went out to investigate. They got electrocuted. Another family member came out and saw the person on the ground, went to investigate. That person was electrocuted. The whole family, except for the last one, put themselves at risk, and they died. So the hard lesson there is, if you saw somebody that was on the ground near a downed line, don't put yourself at risk. Just assume it's energized, and until you know that line is de-energized, stay away. Get help.
Okay. And I'm sure you've had this question before is, well, why don't we just put all our utilities underground so we don't have this hazard in our community?
Well, there's two reasons. One, it's much harder, if there is an outage, it's much harder to find and repair it if it's underground. You can't just see the location where the break occurs. And the second is, it's very, very expensive. And individual cities have the option to put the line underground if they are willing to pay the cost beyond what the cost would be to put it overhead. And some cities have chosen to do that, and particularly in some areas that are scenic areas. But that's the biggest obstacle, is the cost.
The other thing about this, the electricity and the grid from that standpoint, sometimes people actually will hit a utility pole, and somehow that wire comes down, has contact with the auto itself. So if you're in that situation, what should somebody do?
Well, and it can also happen if you hit a transformer, like a pad-mounted transformer next to a curb.
Okay.
But in either of those situations, the car could be energized. There could be a path from the power line to the car to the ground. And it's another situation like the one you described, where the ground could be energized. The safest place for you actually is inside that car, because you're insulated.
Because of the tires.
Well, it's because there is a better path besides your body for that electricity to go to ground.
Okay.
If you get out of the car and imagine yourself, you step down, you're holding onto the car, and you put a foot down, now you are a direct path for the electricity. And that's a recipe for electrocution. So there are ways that you could exit the car safely if there were a greater threat inside the car. For example, if the car were on fire, and you knew you had to get away. And we've actually we've got a clip to show that technique. It involves jumping away from the car and then taking very small steps. But so if you had to leave, that would be the way to do it. Otherwise, you would want to call 911 and wait until you were told that line was de-energized before you left the car.
We're going to watch that quick video clip now, and then we'll be right back.
Whoa. Oh, man. So that's what an airbag feels like. My car. Great. I should probably get out and see how bad the damage is. Wait. Are those telephone wires or power lines? Either way, they could be hot. No way to be sure. Don't take any chances. Just stay in the car and call 911. Good thing I actually paid attention during that safety meeting. Hi, this is Stephen Stonebanks. I've been in a car accident. I hit a power pole. I'm on Highway 18, somewhere east of the 356th Street exit, a couple of miles. No, I'm okay, but there are power lines on my car. Okay, yeah, I know. I won't move until you tell me that the line is de-energized. Yes, I will stay put. Okay, please hurry. Thank you. Oh no. Hey!
Are you okay?
Hey, stay back! No, don't come any closer. You could get shocked by the ground around these down power lines. Stay back about 35 feet and make sure no one else comes near.
Okay.
I've called 911. They're on their way. Thank you. Oh boy. Not good.
Oh my gosh.
Okay. Plan B. Exit the vehicle. But now I gotta worry about touch potential. Touch potential is risk of electrocution based on one part of the body touching an energized object like a car while simultaneously touching the ground. Electricity flows from the vehicle through the body and into the ground, essentially making me into a human jumper cable, which would be bad. I gotta jump and land with both feet together. Whew! Okay. Now, step potential. Because the ground is energized, electrical current can travel through me if my feet aren't close together. Electrical current enters through one foot and out the other. The further apart my feet are, the greater my chances of getting shocked. So I must move away using short, shuffling steps. Shuffle, shuffle, shuffle. There you go. You got this, Steven. No large steps, just keep on shuffling. Almost there.
I hope you found that video helpful. We think this doesn't happen on a regular basis. Of course, there have been these instances that happen. And, you know, I was sharing at the break that I remember a TV program from the 50s where a car hit a pole and they just left the gas station, forgot to put the cap on the outside. And this is 1950s, I'm sure. And there's this wire dancing around the thing and this issue of how do I exit the car. And then an unfortunate incident, actually a relative, teenager riding with other kids, hit a pole and everybody died because of a fire following that. So it does happen, and thanks for sharing that message with us. And I'd just like to remark at this point here, Charlie, that, you know, as I look at companies here in the Puget Sound region, the one that pops out for me in my personal experience is Puget Sound Energy and the safety culture there. How about give us a couple examples how safety is kind of ingrained into Puget Sound Energy?
Well, we measure it in a variety of ways, including how many accidents there are, how serious the accidents are, and we use those to gauge our safety record.
Yeah.
And we compare ourselves to other utilities, and we made it our goal to be in the first quartile of all utilities in the country.
All right, so you're benchmarking.
We benchmarked it, and we are in that first quartile. And to keep that attitude present in everybody's mind, it's not just safety on the job, it's safety at home as well. So we do a number of things, including everybody in the company every month has safety training. I just went through 3 hours of CPR training, right. And every employee in the company was required to go through that CPR training.
And does that include AED, automatic external?
That includes AED, right?
Yeah.
Right. We start our meetings with a safety moment. Now, these aren't just the meetings of the people who work in the field and are exposed to electricity or gas. It's even our board of directors, for example. Before that meeting starts, somebody is invited to give a safety moment, and it's not the leader of the meeting, it's whoever wants to offer it. And it's not about gas and electric safety, it's about safety, period. So people often talk about things that they do at home, experiences that they've had where they've learned something and they've changed something so that they could be more safe.
Okay, I think that's a great example and reveals, you know, really how you get a culture ingrained in a company. So thanks for sharing that. And we've got 2 more safety messages for you, and this is our midpoint break. Watch these public service announcements, one on electrical safety, one on gas safety, both very short but appropriate for this show. We'll be right back after them. Welcome back, and today's show is about electrical and gas safety, and I've got Charlie Gedzik from Puget Sound Energy as my guest. It's great to see those quick messages. I know those are playing on commercial stations because that's where I first saw them there, and thanks for sharing those with us and our viewers here also on Disaster Zone. So we're going to switch now to natural gas from that standpoint. And you know, as I watch the national news, and I grew up watching national news about age 13 is when I started watching. Here I am, I'm still watching it. But occasionally we see these videos now because there's a lot of video out there of homes blowing up. It doesn't happen everywhere and all the time, but a lot of times it's attributed to a natural gas leak and then followed by an explosion. And there's one not that long ago in Portland like this. So natural gas is pretty safe, but what types of things causes that type of really significant event?
Well, first let me mention that a lot of times those explosions you read about in the news end up not having anything to do with natural gas. It's surprisingly how many crack explosions are first reported as natural gas explosions.
And you're talking about drug labs.
Right, drug labs.
Blowing up, okay.
And propane tanks, for example, they malfunction. So, and those all are subject to a whole different set of safety criteria.
But so don't jump to conclusions that it's natural gas.
The gas explosions are actually very rare. They're about they only happen about a quarter of the time that electrical mishaps, for example, happen. And you never think of electrical mishaps as being that dangerous. I don't mean to minimize it because even one is one too many. So what causes them, actually the most frequent cause is construction accidents and somebody's out there digging in the street or digging in the yard and they break into a gas line. In fact, Portland had an accident, a building exploded within the last couple of months. That one was caused by a contractor digging in the street, breaking a gas line, the gas going into
back into the home,
back into
building.
the building, right? It can also happen if the pipeline corrodes. There are steps that gas companies take to protect their lines from corrosion. They actually put a small electric current on to draw off the corrosion, and we inspect them we actually walk every single mile of our 26,000 miles of gas lines at least once every 3 years with a sniffer to find and inspect for corrosion to find
and
where
that's
that might
the residential areas also?
Yeah. And in urban areas it happens more frequently than that. So corrosion is another possibility. Lightning strikes on occasion. A lightning in one case that happened recently hit a fence. The fence post took it down to an abandoned water line. The abandoned water line took it down to a steel gas line, and it caused 3 marble-sized holes in the gas line and led to gas leaks. So those are fairly rare occurrences. But the good news is that we have a very, very effective detection system to recognize when there's a risk, and that's our noses. You can smell.
So this is the rotten egg.
Yeah. You can smell a gas leak long before it gets to the explosive stage. And if you report it when you smell it, then we can very quickly find it and remedy it. So when you smell gas, leave wherever you are. If you're inside, go outside and call PSE or call 911 from outside your house. If you're outside, move away from the source of the leak and call. You don't want to be flipping any
light switches or doing
because
anything.
that causes a little spark behind the wall, and if the gas had built up to an explosive level, you could actually set it off. You don't want to even stop to open windows because you know that there's not an explosion happening when you're there.
In the current environment.
You don't want to change the environment because it's only ignitable within a narrow range.
Yeah, explain that to folks that, pure natural gas won't ignite. You would think, okay, there is a fairly narrow range, so too much it won't, and too little it won't either.
I've seen demonstrations where a trained gas worker holds a torch right above a blowing gas line and it doesn't ignite. He's got to bring it up here and get some distance because it's only when the gas is between a range of, say, 4 and 14% of the ambient air that it is ignitable.
Really? You're not Williams Pipeline, which is a big natural gas provider to you and other gas utilities. I remember in Woodmill, again, this is probably 10, 15 years ago, an excavator hit one of those lines, and there is no smell, but there's a huge roar sound from that. And these lines used to be out in the country in the woods. Actually, there's a Williams pipeline runs probably less than a quarter mile from my house. Used to be woods even when we moved in, and I remember walking up above us out there. I said, boy, that's really a big distance between these houses. Well, what's that all about? Why is there that much distance only between? Well, then I saw on the curb Williams pipeline. So those types of pipelines don't have natural gas or have the rotten egg smell.
Typically not, but it depends where they operate, because if they're operating within a densely populated urban area, they will sometimes
Add it
to it. Yeah.
But you're adding it yourself as Puget Sound Energy.
Right. So what we're talking about is a chemical called mercaptan.
Okay.
It is very, very powerful odorant. In fact, just a pure mercaptan, if you can, the nose can smell that with 1 part per billion.
Yeah. And we're not talking about the dog smelling, we're talking about us smelling.
Yeah, we're talking about us smelling, our ordinary noses.
Yeah.
So it's very detectable. And we inject it into our gas at the point where we receive it from Williams. There's a gate station, so to speak, and then we inject it in and it goes out. So it's all odorized within our service area.
Okay. And what about, there can be other small leaks in the ground. How might you detect that?
Well, there are other ways to notice a gas leak that you wouldn't expect. One, if there were a leak underground, and it would kill the vegetation above it. So if you see dead vegetation where you wouldn't normally expect it, you could suspect that there could be a gas leak under there. If you see something bubbling up through a puddle of standing water, that's likely to be a gas leak.
Okay.
So those are things that you should report.
And something you talked about, calling PSE, come. How much does it cost to have a Puget Sound Energy technician come to your house when you suspect anything wrong with your gas or electrical system?
It's absolutely free. That's absolutely free. So that's why we encourage people to call even if they are unsure. But don't be embarrassed that you might be wrong.
Yeah.
Because if our guy will come out there, and if we find that it's a rotten sandwich behind your refrigerator, our mind will be put at ease, your mind can be put at ease, and we'll make sure that it's safe.
Yeah, so don't be thinking, money's an issue on this. You're coming out for free from that standpoint.
And we come out as soon as we get the call.
Okay. What about other precautions, whether for appliances, water heater, making sure your gas meter, which is generally on the outside of your home, the ones I've seen are always outside. What about things you can do to, help protect your property and people in it?
Well, with the gas meter outside, you shouldn't put anything up against it. Don't lean a bicycle up against it. That metal-to-metal contact defeats the corrosion protection that we put on it. Don't surround it by bushes or don't build a deck around it. We want the access to that to be clear so we can inspect it regularly and make sure it's safe. And if there's ever a need, we can get to it quickly. If you ever are worried that there is something unsafe that deals with natural gas in your house, call us, and even if it's not a gas leak, if you just think you have an appliance that's not functioning properly and it might possibly be unsafe, call us. We'll come out and we'll check it out for you. If again, there's never a charge for the service call. If we find that there's something wrong and we have the parts to fix it in our truck, we can tell you what it would cost to fix it right then and there, and you can decide whether you want us to do it or you want to call your technician from your local appliance company to come out. But that's something that I would encourage people to know. They always can call us if they're worried about safety. We will check it out.
Is there anything, age-wise on appliances that older ones are less safe versus new ones, or vice versa on that?
I would say that, just as a general rule, older appliances are less safe because things wear out. But that doesn't mean they're unsafe. Yeah. It just means you have to be on top of their care and their maintenance.
Last big segment I want to talk about, something, again, I learned, had not heard of this thing called cross-boring before. And in preparing for this, you wanted to highlight that hazard. So how about sharing what the heck is cross-boring and what should be people looking for and be prepared to do?
Well, I'm not surprised that you hadn't heard about it before because it's a little bit hard to get your arms around it. It seems rather unbelievable. And what you're talking about is the rare instances where gas lines have been installed through sewer lines accidentally. How could this possibly happen? Well, let me first show you what I'm talking about.
Yeah, you brought some.
You can get a visual. So
training aids here.
This is the sewer from your home to the sewer in the street, and this is a gas line through it. Now, how does that happen? For a long, long time, 30, 35 years, utilities, not just gas utilities, but electric utilities, telecom utilities, they have used an installation technique to try to avoid tearing up your driveway and tearing up your gardens. They bore underground. They have a machine that bores a hole underground instead of digging a trench. The sewers that are generally made of clay or plastic, they're not designed to be located. So when the utilities were installed, even though they and we called 811, locator comes out there, they're not locatable.
811 is one universal number to mark your
call before you dig, so that you'll come out and mark the utility so you can avoid hitting them.
Yep.
And it's a free service. Every homeowner or every business should know about it. But it's a service that doesn't find sewer lines. Sewer lines aren't mapped generally. Seattle is an exception. You can get sewer maps online, but in most jurisdictions you don't know where they are. You can't find them on a map. And so every once in a while, one of these machines would bore through a sewer line, and nobody would know about it. And it's actually not a problem unless that sewer line gets blocked. If it gets blocked and a plumber or you come in with a rented snake, a mechanized cutting tool, right?
Yep.
You run that snake through, and when it comes to that gas line, breaks the gas line, and the sewer then is a path for the gas to come into your house, and now you have a gas emergency.
So if you smell gas coming out of a drain, you'd say, well, how's this possible?
That's how it might be. Now, a drain in your house, you mean, right?
Yeah, a drain in your house, right? You know, coming out of, bathtub or a drain in the basement.
So the accidents that resulted from these things are very rare. I mentioned, I think, that there are 67 million gas customers in the United States, and over the past 40 years, we've been able to detect about 12 explosions that are caused by this problem. But it's a problem that utilities cause and need to take responsibility for. And PSC, when we became aware of it and we really learned about it, we became aware of the threat in 2010 when there were a couple of explosions in Minnesota that happened within a few months of each other that made national news. And at that point, we began developing our own program. We're the first utility in Washington to have a cross-bore program. So what we've done since then, we now have changed our construction practices so that we're not creating any more.
You're not doing that boring
We're still doing the boring, but we are inspecting those sewers to make sure that we didn't put a gas line through them.
Right.
A company called Hydromax, which is our service partner, will go out and inspect them after the construction occurred. We're also looking for those cases where we used that technique in the past, so there's many thousands, so we're going back in our records and retroactively inspecting. But really the biggest thing that people should know is that if you have a backup in your sewer now and it's in your yard, it's not in your sink, before you run a cutting tool through there, call PSC. About an hour before you plan to do that, we will come out immediately. We'll meet you or we'll meet your plumber, and together we can locate the sewer line, we can locate the gas line, and we can make sure they don't cross so that you or your plumber can go ahead and clear that sewer and not take any risk.
Okay, and just knowing that these things don't all happen during 9 to 5 on a Monday through Wednesday, you say an hour. What about, it's now 10 o'clock on Christmas Eve, and it's all blocked up. You got people coming over, so you're calling a plumber and paying a lot of money for that plumber to come. How long might it take, when it's off hours, to have somebody respond to that type of event?
Well, our average response time across the year is about 30 minutes.
Okay.
I would say that if it's in the middle of the night, it's going to be longer because somebody's leaving from home.
Yeah.
But on a holiday, there's people
Yeah, on
working.
call.
They're on call. Yeah.
Are they on call or are they actually working?
They're actually working on holidays. Yeah.
Okay, all right, so you're available 24/7, 365, except for leap years when it's 366, I think.
And again, there's no charge for that service, so it's better to be safe than sorry. However, for those viewers who are not in the PSC service area,
Yeah.
keep in mind that this is only something that PSC is doing right now. Other utilities are establishing their programs, but they're not quite as far ahead along the line as we are.
Okay. So is there anything, kind of final question, that you'd like to share about electrical or gas safety that people should keep in mind? And it isn't just the people watching this show now. I always give the example of we'd moved into a relatively new house. But I showed the kids where all the meters and shut-off valves, where we had a pipe freeze, which I didn't know was an outdoor pipe. I had one of those deep freezes back in 88, 89, and then it warmed up and the water pipe broke. And the only person home was my 10-year-old daughter, but she knew where the water shutoff valve was in the house, and so she shut it off. So it's not just the person watching this, but you should share it with everybody in your home. What would be the tips you'd share there?
Well, I think the one thing that I would hope people remember after listening to this show is what to do if they smell gas. To know what it smells like, sulfur or rotten eggs, and just to call PSC or 911 so that we can come out and we can check it out. That is the number one tip that everybody, including children, should know. We have a brochure that has a little scratch and sniff feature. We mail it to all of our customers who receive a paper bill every year.
Yeah.
But if you're not a customer, or if you don't get a paper bill, you can go on our website and there is a place where you can request it, and we'll mail one out to you so that you can smell it yourself. You can teach your kids what it smells like.
I'm in your service area. I know I still get a paper bill as a reminder there, but there's safety messages in those with the bills many times, if not always, very frequently. So it's a good way to stay abreast also. Well, listen, Charlie, for coming up on the show, we pay everybody hundreds of thousands of dollars for appearing, but instead, you get this lovely Disaster Zone coffee mug you can take with you back to the office, and when people ask, what the heck is that? Or maybe when you're given a safety tip, you can talk about being on the show. So,
all right, excellent. Nice mug.
That's my mug. That's your mug there. Okay, but thank you for being on the show. Thanks for the emphasis on safety by Puget Sound Energy.
My pleasure.
All right. And for you people at home, again, this brings us to the end of our show for today. Thanks for tuning in, learning more about what you and others can do to become better prepared for disasters. And that also means electrical and gas safety. And remember, if you're going to get prepared, today is a good day to start. Have a great day. Tune in again soon. Bye-bye.